Picture an apocalyptic Earth torn apart by nuclear war. This is a scene most commonly imagined only in science fiction movies. Unfortunately, as Middle Eastern countries continue to advance their technology, this is becoming more and more of a possibility. The Middle Eastern country of Iran is a primary nuclear threat to the United States. Being knowledgeable about Iran's nuclear threat helps you further understand heightened sensitivity of nations toward Middle Eastern conflicts, the political struggle and policies made in matters dealing with Iran, and finally, the necessity of the taxpayer's dollar towards military action in the Middle East. Today I will be discussing with you 3 different components involved with Iran's nuclear threat. I will discuss Iran's current nuclear capacity, I will explain Iran's nuclear danger in dealing with terrorists, and I will speak to the United States' action as a result of Iran's nuclear danger. We'll start with Iran's nuclear capacity. Iran's nuclear capacity is integral in measuring uranium and threat level. Nuclear facilities play a big role in how much nuclear material is capable of being obtained. The European reporter William Hague from the Guardian News in Europe reports that Iran currently has multiple nuclear power plants, known and unknown, and is seeking to build more in the future. Mark Mazzetti from the New York Times states that Israeli officials remain suspicious that Iran has a secret enrichment site yet to be discovered. Iran must first obtain a certain amount of uranium in order to build a nuclear weapon. Mark Mazzetti reports that Iran has produced about 5,700 pounds of uranium, enough to create about 2 nuclear bombs. Gary Borger from the Guardian News in Europe reports that on December 10, 2010, Iran took a big step in nuclear self-sufficiency by announcing that for the first time they had used uranium mined on their own soil. Iran is not yet known to have produced a nuclear weapon, but the timeline on their production is relatively short. Steve Hirsch from the New York writes that the 2 most recent national intelligence estimates on Iranian nuclear progress have stated that there is no conclusive evidence that Iran has tried to build a bomb since 2003. Israeli intelligence officials argue that Iran could complete a race for the bomb in months, but Americans argue that the timeline is a little bit longer, more like a year. This was reported by Mazzetti in 2010. Now that we understand a little bit about Iran's nuclear capacity, let's take a deeper look into Iran's dangerous links with terrorist organizations. Iran's involvement with terrorist groups heightens nuclear threat. Iran has been linked to Al-Qaeda activity over the past decades. According to Mike Egan of the Washington Post in 2004, 10 of the September 11th hijackers may have passed through Iran in late 2000 and early 2001 because of Iranian border guards were instructed to let Al-Qaeda associates travel freely in and out the country. Bruno reported that in 2010, Iran also reportedly began releasing detained Al-Qaeda operatives. There's also evidence that Iran supplies arms to terrorist groups. Bruno states that U.S. officials say Iran provides funding, weapons, and training to numerous terrorist groups, most notably in Iraq and Afghanistan. Bruno also reports that military officials say numerous attacks since 2001 on the U.S. and NATO troops in Afghanistan and coalition forces in Iraq have been attributed to Iranian-made weapons. Because of Iran's involvement with terrorism, the United States is forced to take precautionary action against the country. The United States is taking action in a number of ways in order to negate Iran's nuclear threat. Nuclear regulations are a primary non-combative way in which Iran's nuclear capabilities can be limited. Bruno reports that since 2003, the United States and international allies have pursued political and economic policies, including sanctions, in order to prevent Iran from developing a nuclear bomb. Iran refuses to cooperate with international regulations and inquires into its nuclear activity. William Hague reports that Iran has refused to enter into any negotiations on its nuclear program until the UN Security Council agrees to lift all sanctions and immediately recognize Iran's right to enrich uranium. Secret military operations and pressure helped slow Iran's nuclear advance. According to Watson, in 2011, Iranian officials have accused their American and Israeli arch rivals by assassinating 2 Iranian nuclear experts in 2009. Also on this topic, Mazzetti reports that the United States, Israel, and Europe have for years engaged in covert attempts to disrupt the enrichment process by sabotaging the centrifuges. Today I hopefully helped you gain a bit of insight into Iran's nuclear threat. In summary, Iran's nuclear threat is composed of multiple issues that continue to grow. The threat that Iran poses is made up of several components. Iran's nuclear capacity is key in judging its danger. Iran's links to terrorism add greater danger to the nuclear debate. And finally, Iran's nuclear threat spurs response from the United States. Now that you further understand Iran's nuclear threat, you will be able to better understand the significance of current events in the Middle East. As Iran's threat level continues to escalate, an understanding of the situation will become very important in your global awareness.
634.